Welcome to another episode of From Idea to Market. I'm Patrick Bentley. I'm the co-founder of Launch Trail, and I'm your host. So each week, we like to highlight an entrepreneur and give you an idea boost that'll help you run your business a little better. So this week, we've got Marc Stoiber. So Marc Stoiber is a branding expert, and he actually runs Marc Stoiber Branding. He's been in the game for the last 30 years. He's been all over the world, and he's helped huge global conglomerates, but also local startups to create simple, yet inspiring and effective brands. So Marc has been in Hong Kong. He's actually worked as a creative director also in Germany. And he's actually had his own company that he sold called Change, and they were focused on branding for sustainability. And so after he did that, he started his own agency, and since then has been an independent consultant. And so we give you Marc Stoiber. So Marc, where are you joining us today from?
I'm joining you from the left coast of Canada. You can't go any further except hitting the water. So I'm in a place called Victoria, BC, and it's a big tourist place, big tech place, and everybody rides their bike to work, and it looks like a Disney set.
Nice, nice. So Marc, you're basically running your own agency right now. Do you do that independently, or do you have a team of folks that help you out?
Nope. No, it's I used to be the boss. I used to sit in the corner office, had 60 people, 70 people talking to me. And I found it far less complicated to use a global network of people, like yourself.
Yeah.
I can tap, and they're ninjas. They know what they're doing, and they come in, they do the job, we shake hands, and they come back on the next project. Way easier than the old way.
I like that phrase, ninja. I'm actually going to use that. That's awesome. So I'll go ahead and jump into the first question, which is, tell me about your ideal client. Who is your ideal client?
That's a great question, because you can go to the sort of the demographic of it, which is really boring. Okay. My demographic of the ideal client is a small to medium enterprise entrepreneur.
Okay.
But the psychographic, how they think, is what's interesting about this. And these are people who started their own companies.
Right.
And they're successful. They're doing well. I don't like working with guys pulling them out of the toilet, because usually there's a reason for their being in the toilet. I like guys who are successful and ladies who are successful, but they are relentless self-improvers by nature. They're always looking for what's wrong. And that's where I insert myself, because having a sort of an outsider's objective perspective and a bit of experience, I can usually isolate things that they're blind to because they're inside the jar.
Okay. That's actually a really great answer. That might be one of the best that I've gotten so far. I like how you break it down between the demographic, but then the actual psychographic. It makes a lot of sense. So that is a good transition into the next question, which is, what's the problem that you solve, Marc?
The problem that I solve is having worked in this business for a long time, I find that I add very little value when it comes to technological execution or any sort of execution, because execution and tactical stuff is kind of low paid work, and it comes down to repetition. And where I find, if you go up the value chain and you go towards strategy and more big business thinking, that's where my value starts to increase. So I come in not when they're saying, hey, we want to put a Facebook campaign together, because let's face it, there's a million guys who could do that job better than me. But they come into me and they go, something's not working and we don't know what. And that's where things get interesting. So for example, I was just on the phone before we got on this podcast with a person who's going to bring me in, because what they want to do is figure out how to position their company that does quantum computing, artificial intelligence. Wrap that in a jingle.
Yeah, that's really heady. That's really heady to be able to.
Yeah, so they come to me with stuff where they just go, we don't even know what the question is, let alone what the answer is. So what I do, being a fairly dumb guy, I pull back and I say, let's talk to your clients and figure out why they buy what you're selling. And 99% of the time, the client's not buying what the entrepreneur thinks they're selling. They're buying a completely different benefit than what the entrepreneur thinks. And that's where the problem is solved.
Great. So this might actually be a little bit repetitive, but it may give you a little bit more time to expand on that. You kind of got into it. So what are the typical symptoms that the people who experience the problem that you solve have, right? So you kind of got into it a little bit, but can you talk more about what?
No, you can go way deeper. That's not
Yeah,
repetitive at all. That's a
let's go
great
deep.
question.
Let's go deep.
I'll tell you, the first thing they have, I walk into their office every time and they just go, ah, and they don't know.
Yeah.
They know something's not working. And so the first symptom is extreme frustration because these are go-getters. These aren't people who just are punching the clock.
Right.
They're watching the bottom line 20 times a day. So they're extremely frustrated. They think that they have something that everybody should buy, and they can't figure out why the heck nobody's buying that, or not enough people are buying that. And so what they tend to do when they show those symptoms, a manifestation of that is they go, okay, they're not buying the product because the product's not right. So we got to fix the product. So they go into this product optimization, and we got to make the product bigger, littler, this, that, the next thing, and we got to start looking at the price. And then a lot of times they get into the death spiral on the price, where they start commoditizing their product, and
the race to the bottom, as I call it.
It's the race to the bottom.
Yeah.
And all along they walk right past the obvious bit, which is if you only ask people, they would actually tell you that your product's fine. They're just not buying it for the reason you think they're buying it. And so they don't think about it because you're not telling them that thing that they want. You're telling them something else. So they're not paying attention.
Awesome. So what are some of the mistakes that people make when they try to solve that problem on their own?
There's a couple. First, we just covered, which is optimization. They try to optimize the product. They look at everything on how to tweak the product, how to make the product better. And along with that comes the price, which obviously then leads to the death spiral. The second thing that they try to do is when you're frustrated by sales, you reach for different tactics. And unfortunately and fortunately, the world of digital has opened up the field and given us all these incredible tools. So the problem with that is that most of us don't know how to use these tools. We just assume because somebody tried to sell us remarketing or SEO or Facebook or YouTube or they try to sell us these things saying it's going to save your business. But what they skip right past is, what's the message that you're trying to get across? What is your audience looking for? So it's like me selling you a workshop, a workshop, and you go, that's fantastic. Now I can build tables. And then you find out that it's actually a metal shop and it's only for welding.
Yeah.
So, but it's a workshop.
I mean, that's happened to me before.
Happens to all of us. And the problem with that is that it's so seductive because they have numbers, they have results. Everybody has results. But again, it's putting a very good tool in the wrong hands, or putting it in hands trying to do a job that it wasn't intended to do. And that is where being an old guy pays off, because you can pull back and go, let's think of the job you're trying to do first, and how you're positioning and how you're selling. And then we can pick and choose with clarity all those fantastic tools and put them to use.
And that's a really great answer. So here's where we get to the meat of it. And I want to hear this too. So what is one valuable free action that the audience can implement that'll help them with this problem?
That's an awesome question. And again, I was just on the phone with somebody else, and I said, I am lazy enough at this age that I am not going to try and solve your problem. They were talking to me about changing their name. What should we change it to? And I'm like, I don't know. Pull the brakes. Just pull the brakes on that, because I'm going to tell you something that's going to solve your problem, and it's the dumbest thing that you can think of. It's so dumb you never thought of it. And that is, get the people who write you checks, the ones who have bought your stuff, maybe bought your stuff twice, which shows that they actually like you. Because anybody can buy it once. The folks who buy your stuff twice, sit down with them, buy them a cup of coffee or a beer, and ask them three things. What is the thing that my product solves best for you? So assume you're hiring my product to do a job. What is that job that you wanted to have done?
Right.
And this is a big eye opener for most people, because they go, job? they're buying my product because it's a product. You go, no,
Yeah.
nobody buys a product because they want a product. They buy it because they have a job that they need to get done, and they look at all the candidates and they go, this one is the one that will do the job best. So that is 100% free. In fact, I would highly discourage you from hiring anybody to do that job for you, because when somebody does the job for you, they're not vested in the solution,
Yeah.
and you will suffer from broken telephone. So you sit them down, people who've given you a check a few times, and say, what the hell? What job did you hire this product to do? And does it do that job right? And what does it suck at? And what does it do really well at? And would you fix the stuff that it sucks at? Or is that not even a problem? So you just connect with a human like we should connect. And I'm not talking about doing Survey Monkey. I'm not talking about doodle polls here. I'm talking about sitting down, looking them in the eye,
Yeah.
and actually asking them. And that, with the explosion of technology, is something that we do less and less.
Very true. Very true. Great answer. So let me ask you another question then. So what's one valuable free resource that you can direct people to that'll further help them solve this problem?
Well, I've been in this long enough, and I've been passionate about it long enough, and I've seen enough entrepreneurs who can't afford to buy me suffering long enough that I said, screw it. I'm going to build them something that they can just tap and use and go for it. And it's called Brand DIY. And if you go to my website, markstoiber.com, and you just look up Brand DIY, you can download it for free. And what it is, it's 2 books. There is an ebook that is, I call the thinking book. It's a textbook, and you can read it. And it's not a scary textbook. I always like to joke, it's 2 trips to the bathroom textbook. So it's not a big one, all right? It's like 50 pages. And the second one is a doing book. It's a workbook. And this gives you all the questions and spaces for the answers, and you can type them right in there. And it walks you through all the essentials, starting with sit down with 5-10 people and ask them these questions, so that it gives you the template to go through what you and I just talked about. And then it goes through your story, your unique selling proposition, your name, your key visual, all that kind of stuff. But most important, there's a template. Fill it in. When you fill it in, you'll have perspective.
And perspective is important, for sure.
Perspective is everything.
All right. So final question, Mark. And this is sort of a little trick question, but so what question didn't I ask you that I should have? And of course, what's the answer?
Well, you work in the world of tech. You work in the world of marketing. That intersection of tech and marketing is fascinating. And the question that I wish people would ask more is, this whole world of tech and marketing is getting more and more complex. Is this true? And if so, why? So the answer I'd provide to that is yes. The world used to be a lot less complicated. You'd have 3 magazines, 1 newspaper, couple television stations, half a dozen radio stations, and you would have ad agencies who, because they had amalgamation, could buy advertising spaces in these places, like in those newspapers, and get reduction in prices. And they became the experts. So you would go to an ad agency, pay through the nose, and you would get your campaign out, and you wouldn't have to think about it so much. Today, as with everything else in life, this has been democratized and DIY. So everybody can create a campaign that reaches 1 million people, theoretically. Everyone can build a platform using tools as simple as MailChimp that they can build a community and talk to them. However, what has come with that, with the advent of so many cool tools, the downside is that we have so many cool tools. And so you see so many people reaching for one tool and it doesn't work because they didn't use it properly, and they throw it away and they get the next tool, throw it away. And by the time they've used 5 or 6 tools, they're just crying. So that is, I think, the biggest question is the world getting more complicated, and why is it getting more complicated? And then you jump to the conclusion, what the heck can I do about it? and that is to step back and get perspective.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot to sift through, man. And so, I mean, and I've done that myself. I mean, I love tools, right? Like being a techie and being a developer, I love tools, but sometimes I have to just say, all right, I'm not using anything new. I'm just going to take just old fashioned and try to find my clients the regular way, you know, or just with what I already have, because you end up in this continuous cycle of learning, as I call it, right? Like you end up in tutorial purgatory. Like you're always trying to find some new tool and you're always learning the new tool instead of actually going out and using it, you know? And so, yeah, it's definitely detrimental. So
I got something to throw at you.
yeah.
You know, B.B. King.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. B.B. King, one of the greatest blues guitarists of all time. And there was a thing that he created that was called the B.B. King box,
Uh-huh.
which is one note on one string and then two notes on the string higher than that.
Yeah.
And he could run an entire solo that
Just off of that.
would knock you off the wall with three notes.
Man. And that's
And
all we
that,
need.
yeah, it's not about the technology, it's about the soul.
Mm.
It's about you and what your intent is and how you connect with people. But B.B. King could do it with three notes.
Whew.
You know, you can do it with one tool if you want.
All right.
And so that sort of perspective is what people need to keep in mind.
Man, that's great. So you heard it here, folks. Keep it simple. You can make a masterpiece with just three notes. So Marc, I appreciate your time so much. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to put the links below. So please make sure that you check out Brand DIY. Make sure that you check out Marc Stoiber. And as always, make sure that you sign up for our newsletter so that you can continue to get more resources just like this. Marc, thanks for your time. And thank you for tuning into another episode.